Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm super pleased to have as our guest today, Melissa Houston. She is a CPA. I do know that she's over in Canada, and she's got over 20 years of experience. And as a financial strategist for CEOs, Melissa helps successful business owners increase the profit in their businesses so that they can keep more money in their pocket and build their personal wealth. She is a regular contributor over at Forbes.com, as well as host of the Business Society podcast. And when Melissa isn't busy helping other business owners, you can find her at her cottage with her husband, 2 teenage kids, and 3 dogs. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for saying yes. I just know that there is a wonderful career story that our listeners are going to enjoy today. So, let's get right into it and give us some backstory on your career journey.
Absolutely. As you were doing the intro, I was just thinking becoming a CPA was actually my second career. So my first career was in social work, which is kind of interesting. And I worked in social work for about 5 or 6 years. And I was afraid, I was young, I was right out of school, and I was afraid that I was going to get burnout if I wanted to keep up with my social work career and have a family at the same time. So I pivoted. I pivoted before pivoted became a big word in 2020. And for whatever reason, I think I consider myself to be an accidental accountant because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I feel I was far too young, even at the age of 26, to figure it out, right? But I chose accounting and I continued with that career path for over 20 years. I became an accountant. I studied for my CPA. I passed my CPA. I put a lot of hard work into that process. So once I started working in the field and I wasn't thoroughly enjoying what I was doing, I felt like I had invested so much, it didn't make sense to walk away from it.
That's interesting. So from social work to accounting. And so you're still doing accounting today. So, what was the spark of interest that said accounting is the path for you?
Well, it's interesting because, I am a good math person. I really, I really excelled at working with numbers and stuff. So I thought, okay, I'll do this accounting thing. So becoming a CPA is way more than debits and credits, right? So you become a professional business person. They don't just train you in accounting. They train you for the high level accounting stuff, which is very management oriented. And I did a lot of audit work. I did a lot of public accounting work. I worked a lot with business owners. And what I was seeing so often was that when they would come in and they would drop off their books and they would get us to do the tax return. So we would we would go through that whole process with them. But at the end, they would come and pick up their books and we would have that traditional meeting, an hour, sit down with them, tell them what was going on in their business, tell them what we saw, give them suggestions. And I could see the eyes just glaze over and they checked out, right? And I knew that that was a huge problem. And I mentioned it to the partner at the firm and, he's like, yeah, whatever. Like, don't worry about it. They're paying their bill. Who cares? Right. So I always thought I need to go into business for myself and I need to help people with this because they're missing like the gold information that would make or break their business. Like when you know your business finances, you can make sure that your business is going to be financially successful.
Mm.
And it's very scary statistics where it's like 82% of businesses fail because of financial mismanagement. So I didn't love like the number crunching of my career and stuff, but I really loved helping people. So with my social work background and my knowledge for numbers and, really understanding what was going on in people's businesses, I chose to, and this was probably about 10 or 15 years ago at this point. I knew that if I went into business, which I knew I wanted to do, um, that's what I would do. I would become a coach and I would coach people on how to be the CEO of their business, like lose the imposter syndrome and really create that confidence, like 100% confidence in their business. Because once you have that financial info, like if you have that financial knowledge, there's no way you can be blindsided in your business. But the problem was I sat on this desire for over 10 years.
Mm.
And it messed me up in so many other ways. And I love that we're talking about it today, because even if there's one other person listening and was like, totally could relate to it, the encouragement I would give them is follow your heart. Because being highly employable with my CPA designation, I had really good jobs, right?
It's hard to walk away from the benefits. So
It's
what was the thing
so
that
hard.
finally gave you the impetus to, you know what, I'm going after, what was it? What was that pivotal moment that allows you to step into your dream?
It's funny because I kind of got myself into a financial conundrum of my own, right? I blew over $100,000 in like just accumulating debt, and I hid a lot of it for my husband. And this happened within a year. And even though I knew I was doing it and I knew it was wrong, I mean, I'm an educated CPA, I know better. And as I was doing it, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I just kept doing it, right? So that was definitely my rock bottom, where I was like, oh my God. So like I'm not going to get into that whole story because it's not really career related, but it did make me think, how did I manage to do this to myself and how can I make sure it never happens again? So I ended up working with a business coach. And it's like peeling back the layers, trying to figure out what's going on. And I thought maybe it's because I've gained weight over the years and I'm just not happy. I couldn't, like, I had a great marriage. I mean, it's great by anybody else's greatness, right? It's nothing spectacular. I mean, it is, but I'm just going to stop there because I'm digging myself a grave here. But I mean, it's not like a perfect marriage is what I'm trying to say. My kids are great. Like there was nothing that was standing out in my life that was glaringly obvious, like something's wrong, but I just didn't feel right. So as we peeled away at those layers, my coach was like, you're meant to be a business person. And I'm like, I know, but I can't leave my job. I had the golden ticket job. Like I live in Ottawa. It's a government town. Everybody strives to get a government job. And I had a really well paying, full benefits, full pension job that I should have been super grateful for. And it was slowly killing my soul because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do.
So what did you tell yourself to jump?
Well, when I finally, started, getting to the root of the issue, like I knew, right, once we hit that, like we had, struck gold, right, so to speak. And I was like, okay, I'm either in it or I'm not. And it was like a switch going off of me. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And I jumped in both feet and I did not allow myself to turn back. And I think what propelled me is that I felt so good. Like I loved what I was doing with my new business, right? I mean, it was definitely hard work, definitely a lot of failure, small wins, lots of failure, small wins at the beginning.
Sure.
But I loved it. And I never felt like that in any other employment.
I think you're bringing up some key points and something that I could relate to, because when I first went into business for myself, I was straddling the fence because I too had a golden handcuff job where I felt how dare you give this up, this comfort, security. And so
Yes.
when I left that and I started dabbling in entrepreneurship, it wasn't yielding the same sort of success that I had had from a long career in corporate America. And so I straddled the fence in terms of looking for a replacement for the salary and the comfort, the golden handcuffs, even though I had declared I was going after my dream. So it would be quite some time before I really put a stake in the ground and said, you know what, this is it. I'm all in. And I think you have to go all in one way or the other to be successful. So, yeah, I can very much relate to what you're saying.
It's so true. I mean, and it does like I definitely had a lot of fear around going all in, especially financial fear, right? Like, how could I walk away from such a stable paycheck?
Sure.
But, like and I don't know where, my money's going to come from, and I don't know how I'm going to make this work. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You just go for it.
Yeah. So, as you think about the formula for owning your career, what are the key ingredients that you've learned because you've been an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur, as well as you've had some experience working for others? Would you say the secret ingredients, the secret sauce, the formula for owning your career is? What would you say that is?
I would say from my personal experience, looking back on, like I had done the career books and oh, geez, what do I really want to do? And I did all sorts of personality tests and what's the right career for me and all that stuff. What worked for me was following my gut instinct,
Mm,
just knowing that my heart was telling me to do something that made me really happy. And it's kind of an unusual offer for people, because people think, oh, you're a CPA, you'll do my books, you'll do my taxes. And I'm like, no, that's not what I do. That's not where my joy comes from. My joy comes from helping you understand your business better, right? So there was definitely a lot of struggle around, messaging and stuff like that, but I persevered because and I didn't fall into that trap again of saying, oh, well, everybody wants me to do their books, so I'll just do that.
hmm.
Because I knew that was just going to result in the same thing as what I was feeling in, being in an employed situation. So I just stuck to my guns. I followed my gut and trusted it.
Mm. When we're going to take a short break, Melissa, but when we come back, I would love to talk to you about, your appetite for taking risk. And
Mhm.
if you ever found yourself in the passenger seat, just any tips or resources you can share with our audience on moving back to that driver's seat. So
I
let's take
love
a
it.
short break and then we'll come back and continue the conversation with Melissa Houston. Hi there. I hope you're enjoying this episode. This interview is amazing. I do so love it. I want to just jump in and let you know a couple ways that you can work with me. First of all, you can always go to connectwithsimone.com and it will give you the opportunity to get to my books, website, etc. If you want to sit down and have a conversation about your career directly, you can go to careerbreakthroughcall.com and book a free 30-minute call with me to talk about, what's happening in your career. Do you need help with building your confidence? Do you need help with identifying strategic relationships that you need for career success? Do you need help building a career plan? Whatever it is, I'm sure that I can help. So do go to careerbreakthroughcall.com and set up a time for us to have a conversation. Again, it's a free 30-minute call to have a conversation. That's it for now. Let's get back to the interview. Welcome back, Melissa. We were talking about your formula for owning your career, and you were saying to the audience that really having that gut feeling and going after your gut is important. I also heard you talk about the power of having a coach. And I think
Yes.
some people don't realize the benefits of investing in a coach. So talk to us about that, because you speak about how instrumental that was to your pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my first experience ever with a coach. And it certainly wasn't my last. I really saw the value in that, having somebody who's been there, done that, has some wisdom to share, some expertise. And what I really enjoyed about coaching was that coaching is very proactive. It's not like being in therapy where you're just kind of talking about your past and this and that and your reactions and whatever. Coaching is really helping you plan your future and giving you the tools that you need to go for it. And I loved that. And I have not been without a coach since. So whether I need a coach for my business or for, whatever's going on with me, like if I need a mindset coach, whatever, I'm using these resources because they're extremely valuable. And it may not be like an immediate gratification in the sense that, I see a return on my investment immediately, but everything that you do in your life will impact your business in some way or another, right? So if you have like a negative mindset or whatever the case may be, it will impact your business negatively.
I love what you're saying to do to listeners to highlight challenges that you have in your career
Mm-hmm.
and then to identify and partner yourself with a coach to help you get through, whether it's mindset or your ability to deal with fear or to deal with risk, whatever it is, to
Yeah,
find someone to support you through that part of your journey.
absolutely. I find it's very, it's for me anyways, it's been the huge key to my success because being an entrepreneur is very lonely, right? It's just you and, you're serving your clients and stuff, but who do you talk to? Well,
Mhm.
I definitely built up a network of other fantastic, amazing women and some men who I can turn to when I need advice or a good kick in the pants.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about strategic relationship building because I believe for career success, you need a solid career action plan. You need strategic career relationships and you need your career personal brand. So I believe there are different ingredients as we've talked about. So talk to us about, give us some tips for building those strategic relationships.
I love that you brought that up because for me that is definitely something that I thrive on is building those relationships. It really does take a village. So if you've got certain projects that you want to try and you need help, because you have no experience. Like say for example, I want to write a book. So I've got people in my network who've written books. I really make a point of networking with people who've done things that I haven't done before. So should I ever need that support? And it's not about using people for their services and what they can offer you. I mean, you have to make sure that your relationship that you're building with people is very reciprocal. So, offer value and then get value from people as you need it, right? Because you never know who you need to connect with or who can help you do what. And like you said, like it really does take a village to create this business and keep it thriving. A lot of it is really who which, may sound, I don't know, like for some people who are at a disadvantage who don't have a large network. Well, it's within your control. You can go out, you can start making your network, build your network, meet people, offer them things.
Yeah. And I want to say if you're listening and you're an entrepreneur, you still have a job in corporate, that you still have to build strategic
Yes.
relationships. You have to go out and ensure that people know who you are internal to your organization and external to your organization. So you do have to do the work. Now, Melissa, I want to ask you, are there resources that you can recommend to the audience, whether it's books, podcast, or whatever it is, any resources that you think would be helpful to leveling up, to being in the driver's seat, or even building these relationships we're talking about?
That's a really good question. I never really thought about it before because I've just, as soon as I find somebody who interests me, I reach out and I talk to them. There's not necessarily any specific book I've read or person that I've followed or anything like that. I just really am genuinely curious about people. And going back to that social worker in me, I want to help people. So I understand how it works. You help them, they help you at some point. You never know what you may need from somebody at some point. And I just really focus on giving the value rather than getting.
Mm, mm. Well, listeners, thank you for that, Melissa. Listeners, I want to suggest to you that you can go to our LinkedIn group. There's a Power of Owning Your Career LinkedIn group, and that's an opportunity for you to dip your foot in the water, your feet in the water, and start to network with others who've been guests on the podcast or listening to the podcast, and start to build and connect on LinkedIn. Even I have found Facebook groups to be very helpful. I am an entrepreneur. And so, like you said, Melissa, it can be lonely, but I've built this village online where it feels, sometimes I have a water cooler to go to and just shoot the breeze. But I also know people I can go to with questions.
Yeah, exactly. And, like the introvert in me, like when I first started my business, I felt very self-conscious about reaching out to people that I didn't know. But I have yet to experience somebody who's like, no, I don't have time for you. Like everybody seems to really want to help each other. You get in a good network going, you get in good groups, drop messages, hello, how are you? What have you, and people will respond positively.
Yeah, I know, you're in Canada. I did spend some time in Canada. I don't know if I told you this, that I used to live in Toronto.
No, you
Uh,
never told me you lived there.
yes, I did a project
Okay.
in Toronto. I lived on Simcoe Street in the entertainment district, close to this Chapters bookstore. And first I lived in Mississauga and I didn't
Okay.
love it. So I
It's
moved
far,
to
far,
downtown.
far, yeah, far from
Yeah.
downtown.
Yeah. And it was I would live in Canada. I love the experience, but we met online. We met
Yeah.
online and connected and have maintained a friendship. So it absolutely
Yeah.
can be done. And, you just have to be brave and reach out to people and say hello and say, I'd like to learn more about what you're doing. And if someone says no, don't be disheartened. It doesn't have anything to do with you. Like, Don Miguel Ruiz says in the book, The Four Agreements, don't take it personal. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It maybe they don't have the bandwidth to engage and to add another person to connect with. So just keep going and keep going until you're successful in building relationships.
Exactly. Or maybe they're just not your people too.
That's true. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
realize that and be exercise discernment when you go after your people. I think that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any parting words? We're about to wrap up the interview. So, any parting words that you'd love to leave with our audience, just to encourage them to, again, as we talk about a lot on this show, be in the driver's seat, hands on.
Absolutely. When you start having those feelings, and we all have those little gut feelings, those little messages, I think Oprah calls them our inner voices. And, when they start speaking to you and telling you that, you're not doing something that is bringing you fulfillment, or you're realizing that maybe you're in a job that you once loved and it no longer serves you and it's time to move on, you really owe it to yourself to listen to your voices and trust your instinct and look at exploring that instead of trying to stifle it and, stay because it's easier. So those would be my big parting words, because that's one thing that's probably one of my biggest regrets, is that I didn't do this sooner.
Mm. If you had to name a book for your career body of work, what would you name it?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. The only thing I can think of right now is the ups and downs.
The ups and downs, the ups and
Yeah.
downs. Yeah.
Because life is a bumpy road, and there's always going to be, bumps in the road and stuff, and you just stay the course.
Bumps in the road, stay the course. That might be the title of your episode.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Melissa, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and your career story a bit more. Please tell our listeners how they can stay in contact with you if they'd like to do so.
Absolutely. You can find me on my website at melissahoustoncpa.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And listeners, I'm going to invite Melissa to join us in the LinkedIn group. So join the after show conversation on LinkedIn. There's a Power of Owning Your Career group. So meet us over there. All right. Thank you
I
so much,
sincerely hope that
everybody.
you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.